Welcome to Chapter 3, Channel Selection, where I'll help you figure out which social media platforms you should focus on. So when it comes to channel selection, there are generally three main ways of looking at it. The first way is a strengths-based approach, where you focus on social media channels that amplify and cater to your communication style. The second way is by focusing on top funnel channels first. And in this section, I'll talk about why social media is actually like a sales funnel, and you want to focus on social media platforms that help you with distribution. And lastly, I'll talk about a community-first approach, where you think in terms of the communities you want to serve and try to win those platforms first. We'll go through each of these in turn, starting with catering to your strengths. In life, they often say that it's better to focus on your strengths than to try to fix your weaknesses. Because if you fix your weaknesses, at most, you're only going to get it to an average level. But if you focus on your strengths, that's where you have a chance to be extraordinary. So a question that I often ask people when they're trying to choose platforms is, what are you best at in terms of communication styles? And there are really only four main ways of communicating, and they are writing, talking, videos, and pictures. And so I want you to pause and think for a second in terms of these four ways of communication media, which one of these are you best at? Because that'll help narrow down which channel you should focus on. And so I sum it up actually here in this graph, where if you're best at videos, for example, so this means you're best at making videos, editing videos, acting, then you want to focus on the video platforms. So this includes YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. If you're a writer like myself, and I suspect 95% of engineers all fall into this writing bucket, then you need to focus on writing platforms. And there are really only four main writing platforms that most people use these days, which would be Medium, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Substack. If you're best at pictures, taking photos, if you're very photogenic, you're good at editing photos, you have a huge camera setup, then you want to focus on the picture platforms. So this includes Instagram and Facebook. And lastly, if you could talk endlessly and you're just a great speaker, then you want to focus on podcast platforms. So this includes Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcast, but it also includes all the video platforms as well, because you can just film yourself talking. Another way of looking at platforms in terms of your strengths is to think in terms of what people compliment you on. And so a good source of this is both by asking friends what they think you're best at, and also I find that performance reviews are actually a good source for figuring out your strengths. So for example, from a previous performance review at Netflix, someone actually wrote for me that I put out really good memos and emails and that I had a flair for written content. So for me, that means that I should focus on the writing platforms, Medium, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Substack. The last way of thinking in terms of your strengths is in terms of what kind of content you want to create as well. Because different channels cater towards different content. I call this almost content channel fit, and you want to make sure that your content that you produce fits the channel. And so there are many types of content that you can make. So some examples include lifestyle, professional, so this is like serious engineering topics, long form content, and group chat, short form written content. And the type of content you want to make will also dictate what kind of channel you want to focus on. So for example, if you like long form for me and you like developing more sophisticated arguments over time, then short 140 character tweets isn't going to capture the nuance that you need to develop these kinds of arguments. So you want to pick long form platforms. So for me, I picked Medium in particular. For example, here I was writing an article about investor mindsets in engineering. That's going to require a lot more words than a tweet would allow, so I have to pick Medium. That's same for this other article about why often engineers get blocked on promotions. If you cater towards professional content, so this is like engineering specific content, career advice, then you want to focus on professional platforms. So a master of this is Alex Zhu, and Alex is actually an engineer at Twitter and Apple, and he actually published a book and a course on cracking the systems design interview. And if you look at his content, for example, on LinkedIn, here he does a teardown on system architecture for Stack Overflow. This kind of content is much more serious and engineering focused, so you want to focus on professional social networks, and so LinkedIn is a natural place to put this type of content. It's no wonder that he has such a big following on LinkedIn as well, at 320,000 followers. And lastly, if you like lifestyle content, then you want to focus on lifestyle platforms. So a great example of this is Sarah Pan. She has 150,000 subscribers on YouTube, and she's an engineer at Google. And if we see the type of content that she makes, it's all lifestyle. So, for example, here she shows a day in her life as an engineer in New York City. Here she talks about her New York City apartment and what living in Brooklyn is like. So YouTube is a perfect fit for this kind of lifestyle content. Imagine if she tried to post this type of content on LinkedIn, it wouldn't be a good content channel match. But on YouTube, this makes perfect sense. So I summed this up here in this graph. So for example, if you like long form content like myself, then you want to focus on long form platforms, YouTube, Medium, and Substack. If you like just chatting with people, short form content, then you want to focus on Twitter. If you like professional content, kind of like Alex Zhu, then LinkedIn makes a lot of sense. And if you want to create a lot of lifestyle content like Sarah Pan, then you want to focus on the lifestyle platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.